Hello people, hello, and we are getting towards the end of GaryCon season. I hope everyone was able to participate or watch some of the shows. There was a lot of interesting content. I was pretty busy with trying to do my own content and also some other things personally around my house. Today I'm going to show you a little bit about NPCs, the creation of them, tools of the trade, that sort of thing. I've done shows like this before, but I want to show you a new tool that'll be very valuable to you, especially when you are getting into creating your own content. I think a lot of people will just use the content they have or modify it. This show will kind of give you a little bit more of an overview of some tools that are out there that will help you with your particular content that you're trying to build. So without further ado, I'm going to get into this by going into a tool that I found that was very, very interesting, and it really helped get the ball rolling on the show, because before I just had a few tools that I suggested. This tool actually makes it so that you have an easier time with Fantasy Grounds, and it really makes a difference on what you're going to do for time-wise when you come across a NPC that you want to build. So this is the series for building content for NPCs. As you can see on my screen, I already have some things set up. So there's a website. It's called tetracube.com. D&D/D&D stat block HTML. So it is a cool site that will actually help you build a character, and we will take that information from the website and we will add it to the show so that it kind of ties in together. It's not just me showing you a website. I'm actually going to explain how that works and how you can incorporate it into Fantasy Grounds. Because there's a lot of tools out there, but I think this is a good solution temporarily, and it really gives you an idea of how stat blocks are built, which is something that most people don't understand, especially with the parsing of Fantasy Grounds. It really does depend on what you write and how the format of the text is. So I'm going to add basically another capture device, and this is going to be a website where we're going to take a look at the tool itself, and I think it's spectacular. I mean, you can't get any better than this. I think it does a good job with text and markup and that sort of thing. So it'll really help you when you get ready to build upon whatever you're doing as far as Fantasy Grounds goes. So I really hope that you're able to utilize this tool. So I'm going to go and make a display capture, and this will add the ability for me to basically take any sort of display, and that's what I have now. So I will flip back and forth between this and Fantasy Grounds. So right now you're going to see the full screen, so we're not going to cover up anything. And I'm going to actually go to the website, and this is called the D&D Stat Block Generator. Now this is somebody that's just kind of threw this together on their own. I went ahead and donated to support me on Ko-fi. Basically, this person, $3 I gave him for his efforts. I'm going to reach out to him and maybe do a show to him. The content is based on a website, based on StatBlock 5e, which is basically a way to word it and put it in HTML. And then there's another website called 5th edition SRD.org. So most, if not all, of this content is SRD. So you should be able to get away with using this. But the beauty of this stat block tool is that you can customize anything you want in regards to Fantasy Grounds. So it just depends on what you want to do and what kind of content you're building. So this tool is really handy. It just lets you plug in some values, and you can actually take a basic stat block and build your own content. So it's really cool. It's not that hard to do, and it really has a lot of merit in using it as a guideline or a tool to help you with this. So the first thing is, go to this website. It is Tetra NPC-Cube.com. When I'm done with the video, I'll put all this links in there for you guys. But basically, just do a search for Tetra Cube D&D stat block, and it'll probably take you here. But the next step is you have presets for monsters, and then you can save your stat block. So you can re-import it into the website, which is cool. You can load the saved stat block, so if you want to work on it again, you have that ability to import. You have a printable version of the stat block. You can view it as an image, like a PNG file, and then it even has Markdown. So if you want to use it in the home brewery or GM binder, it'll allow you to format it in such a way so that these will accept your work. So that's really cool. It's got some integration in there. So I'm going to try to figure out how to use this as a tool to use with Fantasy Grounds, because it's phenomenal. It's really cool. I'm glad that I found this. I was talking to LadyShel earlier, and her and I had found this together, and we were kind of working on it. But we don't do shows that much anymore, but occasionally we do collaborate, and this is one thing that we both liked. So hopefully this will be helpful for you guys. I'm going to go through one of these. If anybody in the chat has any suggestions on a monster they would like to build, you know, something kind of complex, like a dragon maybe, or I don't know. It just depends on what you guys want. I kind of would like your feedback, because, you know, this is for you guys, not just for me. So this is a stream about NPCs, and we're going to build the stat block, at least the base of it, with this tool. And then I'm going to show you some things that we can do in Fantasy Grounds, kind of speed that process up. Otherwise, you're hand typing in everything, and in Fantasy Grounds, there's nothing wrong with that. When you go to your stat block, you know, you basically have that available, and that's basically what we're going to end up doing anyways, is building a stat block. But we're going to use the tool first to make sure that this is handy and fresh and usable, and that it's going to make sense. So if anybody has any suggestions out there, I'm open. Let's hear some requests, or let's get a monster going here so that we can get this thing rolling. So anybody have any suggestions or anything you'd like to include or have available? Let's check it out. Does anybody out there have a monster? Otherwise, I'm just going to build like maybe a drow spellcaster or something like that, just to give you a basic idea of how this works. Okay, no one wants to really build. That's fine. We'll give you a couple more minutes. But what this tool does is you can pick a drop-down list of different types of SRD creatures to give you a starting point. And then you can go in and name it, change some stuff around, change the stats, add some stuff in here that are related to the basics. And then you have saving throws, skills, immunities, damage type if they're vulnerable, resistant, or immune. You have their languages. You can set that. Then you have all their different types of sight. And then you can set the challenge rating. You can give it a name, more of a formal name. And then you can add your own abilities, or you can use the drop-down list, which has a pretty good templates of basic weapons that are already out there. And then all you'd have to do is modify those. So it allows you to, drag and drop, but it also gives you the ability to basically to make you aware and have the chance to have a starting point, but then you also have ability to create your own stuff by hand. So it's really handy. It's kind of a template basically for building. So if you guys are interested in building NPCs, this is definitely the thing for it. So I guess I'm going to get started. So I'm going to go to it's on right now, the default. So what I'm going to do is pick something off this list if nobody has any suggestions. Let's go with I want to think something maybe humanoid that have spell casting, or something that, could make sense to have some kind of spells or special abilities and whatnot. So what's nice with the templates is that stuff will already populate, so you don't have to go up and recreate everything from scratch. And that's kind of what you do in Fantasy Grounds. When you want to build something off an existing creature, you go into the NPCs and you make a copy of it by dragging and dropping a copy of it in there, and then you can open it up and edit it to your delight. So that's one way you can do it in Fantasy Grounds too. But if you want to kind of build from scratch in a way, you can also do it this way. This method is pretty nice. So I'm going to go ahead and pick something here. So let's just go with a basic drow character. So when I pick drow, I'm going to click Use Preset now. And there you have a basic stat block. You have a short sword, hand crossbow. You have their Fey ancestry, their innate spellcasting with the spells listed, and your sunlight sensitivity. And then you have the base drow stats. This drow is like, you know, maybe a half, 1/4 challenge, because it's just a basic, really basic drow stat block. But if you didn't want a drow, you can select something else and click on Use Preset, and that will allow you to choose your own creature of your liking. So it doesn't have to be a drow. It could be anything you want. But for the sake of the demonstration, I'm going to go ahead and use just a basic drow. And I want to make a drow mage. This is a little bit less common than a regular drow character, and it isn't a priestess, so it'd be a male, and it would or it doesn't have to be male, but it's going to be in this case. So I'm going to go ahead and change the name to a drow mage. And once you make changes, and if you want to see the changes take place, you go ahead and click on Update Stat Block. See, now it's changed the name instead of just a regular drow. So you have medium, humanoid, elf, neutral, evil. And then at this point you can pick the hit die. So this one is set at 3. So if you use a chart or a table to kind of get an idea of what that comes out to be, you can use it like that. Or you can use custom hit points. So it uses a 3d8, but it only gives you 13 hit points. So if I want to, I'm just going to modify it to 15 for starting hit points. And then it has chain shirt for armor. Well, this is a mage, so I'm just going to go with mage armor, and I'll make sure to add that spell to their repertoire later. And then you can click for a shield if your character uses a shield. In this case, this one doesn't. He doesn't really have anything other than the regular speed, but you can add a custom speed if you want to. Now I'm going to adjust the stats, so I'm going to make a strength 9. His dex is fine where it is. Intelligence, I'm definitely going to bring that up to 15. And then take his wisdom down 1. And his charisma is going to stay at 12. So that's pretty good for, for adjusting stat block. It's pretty fair. It doesn't seem too OP or overpowered. Now his saving throws, you can pick which one he's proficient with. In this case, it'll be intelligence. So I've clicked intelligence, click proficient. It adds it down here. Now by default, drow gets stealth and perception. So what I think I'm going to do is you click on these little X's, that gets rid of their proficiencies on their skills. I'm going to pick proficient in Arcana. And you can also select if he's an expert in it, so I might do that, but might be a different level where he gets that. So it depends on his level and such. And then I think one other trait that I want to give him is probably maybe deception or history. I'm going to give him a history, and he's proficient in that too. So when you first do this, it won't update this. You have to keep clicking update stat block as you add. So let's see what it looks like. So there we go. So the stats have been changed. We have the 15 with mage armor note here. The 12 is natural. And then we have the saving throw. We have the skill proficiencies, and then the regular stuff here. So now what we're going to do is take and start adding more things to this character. So is he immune to anything? In this case, no. Even though they have the Fey ancestry, they're immune to sleep, but that's not a condition. So we don't have to mess with that too much. So the next thing is condition immunities. We don't have any right now, so we'll just leave that alone. And then for damage types, he might be resistant to poison. So we'll click poison and click resistant, and that puts that down here. Like I said, if you want to get rid of something, you just click on the little X, and that'll get rid of it. Now, the common and undercommon and elvish, I'm going to make this particular mage. He's going to understand basic common. And once I say speaks, it'll add it to here. But if he only understood it and he couldn't speak it, you can also assign that. Or if you have telepathy, you can assign that. So he already has his dark vision set. It's 120. That came over from this character. Now the challenge rating is going to be a little bit higher, so at least a 1. But then his proficiency bonus is 4. So let's see what that looks like. Yeah, so until he's probably like 5th level. So that's going to be where his proficiency bonus is, plus his, whatever he has for his stat block. So I'm going to make him a 5th level, basically, or equivalent to a 5th level character because of his abilities, his stats, and that sort of thing. So 5th level cleric or 5th level anything is going to have a little bit more magic at their disposal, so that's why I did that. So his challenge rating is up higher because of his proficiency bonus and because I've made some modifications. He's got a couple more hit points. He has a spell casting feature, which I'm going to add shortly. So now that we've added all that, now we get into the point where we can add some preset abilities or actions or reactions. So it has that already baked into the website. So if you're just tuning in, this is a website called Tetra-Cube/D&D/D&D-stat block. So this is a really cool tool that we found this today. The next thing is we want to add the spellcasting feature. So this is going to be a wizard, and his base is main and stat is intelligence. So let's see what that looks like. So when you come down here, you have some presets drop down. So immediately I'm going to come down here and pick spellcasting intelligence. And then when you click use preset, it will actually add the trait, and it will give you a list of things that you can change and modify for spells. So if you go to a website, or maybe you have something open in Fantasy Grounds, you'll have a list of spells that you can give them. So we can give them Firebolt, Mage Hand, those sort of things. And I'm probably going to give them, let's see, Mage Hand and Prestidigitation probably. So what you'll do on the tool itself is you will come in here and just edit the blank spells here. So we're going to go with, let's go with Mage Hand. Mind you, you have to spell these correctly, so you got to be careful. So if you don't know how to spell prestidigitation, you can copy and paste the text, and hopefully not misspell it, because that does matter. So I'm going to copy and paste it in here, and then I'm just going to lowercase the letter P, so that way you don't get messed up. And if you notice, he has 4 cantrips, which is higher level. So let's see. So the other thing I wanted to give him was, let's see, Firebolt. So we can do that. Then he has one more. Let's go with maybe, let's see, we have Mage Hand, Prestidigitation. Let's see, maybe a light spell actually would be useful, especially if he has to go up against his own kind. So light would definitely be a good choice, so let's put that in there. So that's his cantrips. So at level probably 5 or so is when he gets that extra cantrip. So then you got all these other spell slots, so it already calculated that. But if you wanted to put there's question mark, so I'm going to say 5th level spellcaster, and then all these other things will populate. And then where it says the MON, which would be the monster's name, that's going to take the name from there. So that's pretty cool how that works. So the next thing is we're going to continue the spell list, And the reason we're doing that is to make it more complete, so that basically so the characters can do that. So can you more easily use a full character class as an NPC? Sort of. Is there any tool to export No, not really, because they're not the same thing. I mean, you want them to be the same thing, but they're not. NPCs are built differently. They parse differently. The wording is a little bit different. So even in Fantasy Grounds environment, it's not going to be very helpful to you. Is there a tool out there? Not really. I mean, this is probably about the closest you're going to get. So if you know what characters would normally get at certain levels, you can certainly use this tool. And I made some cheat sheets here in Fantasy Grounds. So if you want to look at something like that, here's the proficiency bonuses. So if you want to look at these as kind of like levels, that's kind of what you're looking at. So from anywhere from 1 to 4 or below is going to be a +2 proficiency bonus. When you get to level 5, it's a +3. And it goes, it's just like a character when they get the proficiency bonuses. So that's how you know that part of it. And then when you have size and those sort of things listed, then you know that size of your creature ties in with how many hit points they have to start with. So medium characters normally get like a D8 for their hit die. So you just kind of have to know how the stat blocks work. That's just, something that you have to get used to. Post the link to that site in chat. Yeah, I definitely will. It's on my to-do list. When I'm done with this, I can do that for you. The OBS program that I'm in, I don't know if it won't let me sign into the chat. I can only view the chat at this point, so I'll do that right after the show. But I do have all these tools and links here, so yes, I'll definitely do that. So now that I have that, I'm still editing the spell list. So I'm going to go with, let's see, I want Charm Person, Grease, Magic Missile, Mage Armor. So I need to have Mage Armor because I put that in the stat block. So I'm going to type Mage Armor here. Definitely want Grease. And then maybe something a little bit more utility. Let's see, Charm Person. Oh, Magic Missile. We got to have that. So, no doubt. And it's very critical that you spell the names of these spells correctly, or else it won't parse correctly in Fantasy Grounds. Now, the other second level, I think I'll have like Flaming Sphere or Induce and Relarge. Invisibility is pretty handy, so I'll go ahead and put that in here. And let's take a look at, let's see, Invisibility was 1. Let's see. Definitely want Web and Misty Step. So Misty Step is kind of a nice way to get out of things. And you have to have these commas in between the spells or it won't parse right. And then the last one, I think, was Web. So we're going to have the Web spell, which kind of makes sense for Drow. And then we get 2 third-level spells. So I definitely want Fireball and then something else. Maybe Lightning Bolt instead of Fireball? I don't know. There's Stinking Cloud, Water Breathing, Slow is kind of cool. You know what? I'm going to go, let's see, Best Bestow Curse, Dispel Magic, or Counterspell. There we go. That's very utility. So Dispel, yeah, no problem, Banks, no problem, man. So let's go with, Thank God for autocorrection. So when you're done putting in these spells, and you can say the Mon has the following, you could say wizard or mage spells. I'm just going to put wizard up there where the question mark is. And then I'm going to click on use preset. And that should populate the field up here with the spellcasting trait. So I'm going to go ahead and click on use preset, or add ability, I believe is what we want to do. And now I'm going to update the stat block. And there's the spellcasting statement, and that's exactly what you want in here. And any type of other things that you may have to add, like I need to add some, there's a hand crossbow and a short sword. Well, you're definitely not going to have the short sword. So what you want to do is come down here where the abilities are, and I'm going to move the spellcasting statement, or actually the innate is going to go closer to the spellcasting because he has a couple innate spells. I'm going to get rid of the short blade. And keep the hand crossbow if you want, but I want to add a quarterstaff. So again, I'm going to go to this abilities area and add an action. And if I scroll down this list, it probably has, here's a quarterstaff right here. And then you could have it based on another, you know, some sort of basic output so that you can, you know, mess with it later. But I'm just going to put quarterstaff here, and then I'm going to add the ability, and let's update this and see what it comes out with. Yeah, so we got rid of the blade. Now we're going to use the preset, and here's the thing here. So it says melee weapon attack, strike attack. Well, we can say, it'll say strength attack, but if you want to change that to dex, which is what I'm going to do, you can just change that to dex. And then strength if bludgeoning of 2 hands. All I did was modify the base stat, because in this case, I'm going to be basing it off of dex more than strength. But if you leave it like that, that's the default. And unless they're proficient with something, you don't really change that. And he's proficient with the quarterstaff. So I'm going to go ahead and add that to his sheet. So we're going to go to add ability. And then update the stat block. Let's see what it looks like. And then, oops, I didn't do that right. So here's the quarterstaff. And I put it in ability, that's why. It's supposed to be an action. So if I add action here, okay, so this is the action. Now I've added that action to the sheet, and now I have to update the sheet. And there's the quarterstaff right here. So it's taken +2 to hit, +2 to hit for the strength, but it's taken the proficiency bonus of +3, and that's why it's that. So it's -1 because of the strength. So, but if you base it off dexterity, it's going to get a whole different thing. So if you want to edit that, you can go into this little feather and click on that, and it brings this back up. So now I'm going to put DEX. And then on the other thing is anything that says strength, I'm going to put dex on here just to show you how this works. Now I'm going to add the action and update the sheet and see what we got. So let's go to update. Yeah, so now it's a +5 all the way through, instead of just the regular. So that's how you can fix that if you need to. So this is almost done. So now if you have any other things, you can modify it. Once you're done with this, let's say you're completely happy with it. It doesn't have a space for lore, so that's one thing I think I would request, is just have another cell for lore, but I mean, you can add that in Fantasy Grounds. So you can save the stat block. You can load a stat block if you have one already built, and I do. And then if you can print it as like a HTML, and you can print this off as a PDF, which is really nice. You can view the stat block image, which you can insert into a program like your it comes out like that, really nice stat block. And then you can view the markdown, which you can use in Home Brewery or in the GM binder. And it has all the HTML markup. So this is really nice. So it's a really good tool. And then if you go into Fantasy Grounds, which I'm going to do now, you can interpret that same build in here. So I have some stuff that I cheated on here. Let's see, I got this. This is your anatomy of your stat block. So these are the things you can copy and paste from that page. So if you unlock this character in Fantasy Grounds, you can actually just go in like these traits. You can build these traits right from the HTML. And not from this page, but from here. As you're building this, you can take the text, the syntax, or if you have, for instance, we have this. So if you want to take this thing here and copy and paste it and make this your trait, totally can do that. So if I take and copy this, and I go to Fantasy Grounds, I can just go to the traits area, paste that in. It'll have the correct formatting. If not, you can hit Control A and Control J. That takes all the spacing and the weird formatting out. And then you can copy and paste the title if you don't want to type it. So I mean, it would take a lot less time to build your character. And that's what we're looking at, ancestry. So you need the R in here. So anyways, this is the basis of this lesson, is give you an idea of another tool that you can use. So basically your stat block is set up to where you plug in all this value. So this tool covers all these things, which is nice. Your CR value and your XP, you have to calculate that, and there's websites for that, so you don't have to scratch your head on that. So I have the Home Brewery thing linked here, the GM binder. I have the link here for the monsters. So if you want to look at how to give them the correct hit points or spacing, you have that for the sizes of the creatures. Then you have creature types, and it talks about those. And then you have your alignment, your armor class, and then here's your hit point table. So the creatures that are medium, you use a D8. If they get larger than that, like an orc or something like that, you can go up more in die. And then it has all the different things here, so you can copy and paste. And here's the challenge rating table. And then it talks about all the different senses and everything. So this page that I have, that's going to be part of my description as well. So this is just a reference, basically. And you have all this in Fantasy Grounds, but sometimes it's easier to read outside. If you use... if you have the module for D&D, the Essentials, it has tables here about sidekicks. You want to use this as your NPC format that you were talking about earlier, Naughty Bits. This second and third kind of gives you an average idea of what an expert might have, like which is a rogue or a bard. And then you have your spellcasters, which has the statement, spell casting, the ability score. I mean, these are kind of guidelines for building what you're asking for. And then you have your warriors. So these are kind of like your templates, and these are in the D&D Essentials. And it even goes through all this stuff, what it is and how it affects you. So if you have this content, it's built into that when it talks about sidekicks. So what is this platform? Is this tool on FG? Yes, we're using Fantasy Grounds Unity, and what I was going over was a tool to help you use to build NPCs quicker, because in Fantasy Grounds you have to kind of build stuff, and it takes a little bit longer to do it by hand. So if you wanted to build a stat block and you don't want it to take all day, you can copy and paste a lot of that data from the website and plug it into Fantasy Grounds, make it a little quicker and easier. Plus the wording is going to be correct, or at least closer. So all this text right here, you can copy and paste this into Fantasy Grounds. So if I go to ranged weapon attack, and I'm going to copy that, and then I'm going to go back into Fantasy Grounds, and I'm going to add an action, and this is a hand crossbow, so I'll just type in the title, no big deal. And then copy and paste. And just in case, I'll hit Control A and Control J just to make sure the formatting's not all goofed up, or extra spaces. Now when I close the stat block, now when I hover over, it's parsing, it's correct. And that makes it much easier than trying to hand type all this in. And if you want to use another NPC, you could do that for a starting point and then add all this extra stuff with that tool. So you might have a drow already in your repertoire of monsters. So you can take a drow, for instance. That's what I used as a base. And I just use a very basic drow. And in this case, you can't edit it because it's read-only. So you just drag this over, make a copy of it, open this up, unlock it, and then modify it as needed. So you can do this in Fantasy Grounds, but when you want to customize a creature, it's a little bit harder or a little bit more time consuming if you don't have a template for it, because this is basically like a first level drow. So if you wanted a third level instance of this, it's a little bit tricky to kind of get it all figured out and what needs to be added and such. So I think this tool on the website here, this free website, which I'll put in the description at the end of the video, is a good tool to use, or like a third-party type thing, because it's going to give you a printable stat block, and you can copy and paste all this stuff. And I actually put this in Fantasy Grounds to kind of give me an idea of what the format would look like without a stat block. So I took the stat block, copied it, and pasted it into Fantasy Grounds. And then if you look at this, here's the markup that was on that one page where it has the HTML. And then I had some notes here about the best practices. And then I have an example of the drow that's kind of written more in a text format instead of a stat block. And then I would use this as a reference to help guide me through. And I copied and pasted this off of that character sheet from here. I just hit Control A and then Control C for copy. And then I just went into NPCs and started a new one just in case I wanted to build it from scratch. And then I just take this note and I made another note. Just open that up and paste it in here. And you can see it's a little bit goofed up because it's not formatted for Fantasy Grounds. It's formatted for the PDF. So you'll have extra spaces and stuff in here. But at least it gives you a starting point. And then you can copy and paste everything from here. So you can see all the stats are all jumbled up. But I mean, this gives you a really good start on how this stuff should look. So this is just a way to help you increase the speed and efficiency of working on NPCs. So hopefully this would help you guys out for, in the future. So if I don't have any questions, that's basically what I want to show you guys. It's pretty exciting. Like I said, this guy is just somebody that put in this PC reference. Let's see, there's a PC reference sheet that gives you ideas of, you can pick and choose like which references that you own. So you can actually only pick the books that you actually have in your library. So if I go to, let's say if you have Xanathars, Volos, Tashas, Elemental Evil, Dungeon Master's Guide, Volo's Guide to Monsters, you might have, let's see, this is just some other stuff. So then that kind of reduces the amount of garbage that you're, and you can retract all these or expand them all, and you get kind of like a real basic thing that you can go off of, like their looks and such. So these are some things that will help you. This is a really good tool. So I gave the guy like $3. I'm going to try to get him on the show. So if I go to his little support me thing, I can send him a message. And I'm going to basically say, hey, dude, I like your tool. I used it on this broadcast. I'd like to have you on for a live show or something like that. So we'll see what he says. But nonetheless, the most important part is that this tool is pretty cool. There are other tools out there, like there is the new or updated version of the character builder. They call it the fantasy module, or NPC builder, the fantasy module parser. Teddy and them guys are working on that. That is the predecessor to the NPC engineer. So that's another tool out there to help you with that. So NPC engineer is retired. Now it's fantasy module parser. And that is something that you can decide if you want to use that tool. We actually did a show on it, and if you go to this fantasy module parser website, you have a patron and a Discord, and then there's some if you go to the actual Discord, you'll get the latest versions, and these tools kind of emulate what we were just showing, but you can do it more in Fantasy Grounds and less in third-party tools. So I'm going to add this to my list of things that you might want to check out if you haven't already. It is basically a tool does very similar type parsing, and I think I have it loaded here. So so I have the version of Fantasy Module Parser, and I'm not going to cover how it works and stuff. I haven't even really tested it in a while. But this is the latest version, and you can create NPCs and monsters kind of similarly. So I'll put that in the link as well. But what this does is it allows you to create a project, and then you build all your NPCs and monsters, including the tokens, the story, the images, all that stuff. And then what it does is once you have all your monsters created, you can export it with one click, and it just compiles it all into a module. So you don't have to go through the exporting process and trying to figure out where all your images are. So it's a handy tool if you know how to use it. It's still in beta, still kind of growing. It needs some work. So I mean, I'll put this website here too, so that so you guys can have that in the description. But that's basically what I'm covering here in this particular show, is that I wanted you to know that there's tools out there to help you build stat blocks a little quicker. And if you have D&D Beyond and stuff like that, it's just, I mean, there's tons of tools out there to help things a little, help them to kind of get you along the way without having to start from scratch. You start a character or an NPC from scratch, there's a lot of work. So I have a group here called My Custom NPCs. And if you crack open these stat blocks, there's nothing there. Nothing to, you got to build everything. So that tool will help you with that. So yes, I'm going to add, here's my cheat sheet here. So I'm going to add that link. And how you add links in Fantasy Grounds, if you don't know, is if you have a URL or a website, you just copy and paste the address. In this case, that's not the address I want. I wanted the Fantasy Module Parser. So I can copy that, and then you go to Fantasy Grounds, and then you can paste it inside, and you hit enter, and it creates a link. And then you just take the actual link and drag and drop it into your note or into your story entry, and it creates a direct link that you can click on. It takes you outside of Fantasy Grounds, but it gives you a way to kind of build a little cheat sheet. So that's kind of what I have here. So there's some handouts here that I have, like here's the anatomy of a stat block. I won't be able to send that, but I mean I can, but not through the social media. And then here's the output, what the drow looks like in the story output. So if we have that, and then I'm going to turn off the overlay, go back to Fantasy Grounds, Isn't there a Discord channel for this platform, the parser? Yes, there is. It's on that page. They have their own setup, so yes, absolutely. Yep, they're actually part of our community. Most of the people that are there are part of the college, so that's, you know, they got some guys over there that are excited about making this work, so that's good. I like it when the community comes together and puts together a plan. That's good. So here I have all my stuff here, and then this is the mage stat block, what it looks like when you actually parse it and put it into like a PDF format. And it looks pretty slick. I mean, this is an image right now, so I can't copy and paste anything from it, but it looks pretty good once you output it. If you're going to make a PDF or something, that would be awesome. And then you have, let's see, this is the HTML markup, what that looks like. This is what I was showing earlier on the. So this is the output that it gives you for HTML, which is really slick. And then if I go down here, I'll kind of recenter that. So that's what that looks like in more of a coded format. And then the, so that's the PDF. Here's the anatomy of a stat block. So here's the image of the NPC stat block in Fantasy Grounds. So I have the drow mage here, and then you can see what the stat block looks like, which is kind of cool. And then, of course, there's this table that you should get familiar with, which is also in the D&D Essentials. And I'm going to give you a website that has this stuff in here to help you formulate how you're going to build your characters. So that's pretty much what I wanted to show you, that there's tools out there. So this is Tools of the Trade, or TOTT. And these are basically the things that I wanted you to see, so that kind of helps you along the way and it gives you another tool to work with. So as I find and discover tools, I'm going to make shows about them and show them how you can incorporate them into using Fantasy Grounds, because you can't always rely on just one thing. It's good to have an arsenal of tools and skills outside of what you're normally building. However, it's nice if you have something like this built into Fantasy Grounds, but maybe in the future they'll build something like that. There is an extension called NPC Builder. I think it's very close to this that I'm wanting, and that's on the DM's Guild. I believe it's one of Rob's guys that built it. And so anyways, that's about it. Any other questions? Hey, Fort Hood, what's going on? Yes, there is definitely a Discord. And we actually have it in our affiliate link. So if you want to go into the affiliate links in the college, we have that there. So if there's no other questions, I think I'll call it a wrap. I think I've been rambling enough. We're almost up to an hour at 47 minutes. Support us if you like what we're doing here. We have a Patreon, so it's FGC, so www.patreon.com/FGC. We also have if you don't like being nickeled and dimed every month, we also have a PayPal account. And then we have also just free lessons, free everything else. So if you guys don't want to donate, that's fine. And I'll put all that in the description on YouTube. And this will be available on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Twitch. Yep. So I want you guys to really take a look at this tool. And I can't paste the link directly in here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that right after this show. So I'll take you guys to the next level next time when I find another tool that's going to be useful. If there's anything else you want to ask, go ahead and do that, and give you a couple minutes, because I'm getting close to an hour, and a lot of people don't like watching an hour video. So I'm going to probably end the stream, but thanks for joining me, guys. 17 viewers, that's not bad. YouTube definitely is something that has really brought our community up. So, all right, I think that's good. I don't think we have too many